dating around.
You know,
my age, younger.
Uh-oh. So you date younger men?
Yeah. Hey, y'all. Welcome to another episode of Queen's Vantage podcast. I have an amazing guest with me today, the most beautiful Tiffany Banks, also known as the Poetic Pharaoh. Welcome, Tiffany Banks.
Hi.
But before we get into this, let me tell you a little bit about my guest. Tiffany is not only a spoken word artist, but she is also the host of Speak On It out in Oakland.
Yes.
And she is a writer. She is a wellness advocate. And she is also the author of a wonderful book called Selah, which you can find on TiffanyBanksWork.com. Tiffany, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Eb.
So, Tiff, one of the things that I think, well, we've known each other forever. So let's just say that. Forever being since junior high school. Mm-hmm. But we was able to reconnect just recently through your spoken word.
Yes.
And I can't remember if you invited me out or if I saw it on Instagram. And I came out and I was really drawn to your poetry.
What drew you?
Well, you're deep.
I'm deep.
You are deep. And I think when you speak, you really speak to the soul. You speak to the parts of us that are hidden. At least for me. So You speak to those parts of us that we keep hidden and you really draw us out. And there was a poem that you did that was the power of the...
You could say it if you want to.
Pussy. So, and we do know that there's some power there in our feminine energy, in our womanhood, and also in our sisterhood. So I thank you for sharing your work with the world. And I'm hoping that we can open the podcast today with a few bars from you.
With a few lines. You know I'm going to do it for you. I will do it. I will preface these few lines by saying that I typically perform on stage. So like to transition onto a podcast, it's different, but I like this because I get to read versus perform. And so I hope that it translates well enough for you. This piece is titled Dark Moon. I'm just going to deliver just a few lines, just a snippet of what it is. Maybe one day I'll perform it in its full glory. So it's titled Dark Moon. They warned us not to allow wild dance steps to have an affair with our bodies. But when we chose safety, we chose prison. We chose the same breakfast every morning. We chose the alarm clock howl. We chose inhibitions. We chose ratio putting us at odds. This is why they'll fear us. Dare we shift the paradigm? Imagine brawless poets marching in the streets with chants of both love and rebellion, weapons of both sword and spirit. How can this be contained? So when we chose safety, and I'm going to leave it right there.
All right.
There's
Thank
more.
You. Thank you.
Ashe.
So, first of all, I need to sit in that a little bit.
Yeah, it's one of those, right?
Yeah, like I said, the girl's deep. Thank you, Tiff.
Sis.
What does poetry mean to you?
That's a really good question. I think you said it well. For me, poetry is a manifestation of the parts of us that are unseen.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean dark, doesn't mean shadow, just unseen. I think it's a collective psychology. That's what I think poetry is.
Yeah.
There's more to it. It's an evolution of what it could be, but if I knee-jerk respond to that, that's how I would put it into frame.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
It does. I mean, you said psychology and it's a form of therapy. I know you've been encouraging me to come out and...
You gonna speak on it soon, child?
I might speak on it soon. The last time that I actually shared poetry that I had written was at my mother's funeral.
You recited at your mom's funeral?
I did. I I was taking a creative writing class at the time, and I had wrote this poem post my mother passing. And when my mother passed, my professor pulled me to the side, and he pulled out the poem, and he said, "You need to say this at your mother's funeral."
Wow.
And that was the last time. So that was in 2017, and that was the last time that I've recited poetry.
What did that feel like?
You know, at that time, so when, if you've ever, and I know that you have, Tiff, experienced the loss of a loved one, it's a blur. So so I actually don't remember.
Yeah.
It was cathartic to write, but actually reciting it, it was like you said, like transitioning. I was in a different place, so I didn't remember. Actually, I saw a picture that someone sent me of me reciting the poem, and I was like, I did that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it meant a lot to me, and I still write, but I keep, it's the parts of me that are hidden. So I haven't quite shared, what I write with others yet.
Okay, you're
So.
reciting very, very soon. I'm going to give you 2 more months, and then I'm bullying you onto the stage.
Ooh, okay.
I'm serious.
That must be that Aries
Queen's Vantage podcast.
That Aries energy.
I'm going to get you on that stage.
Bullying me in. So, okay. You know what? I'll take you up on that.
All right.
Because I never turned down a challenge. But Tiff, tell me, what has life been like for you in these last, let's say, 10 years? Because it's been quite a bit of time since we've just connected.
Yeah.
What has life been like for you?
10 years, yo. We can go 5. We're getting mature.
Yes, we are
I won't call it
maturing.
old. Life has been transformative. I've gone through major death and rebirths. My children, my oldest is 16, so I've transformed or transitioned from being a mommy of little kids to now being a mom of teens, where they're more independent but busier. So the focus, my motherhood focus shifts and changes from that younger child development phase to now these emerging adults, right? My own personal journey has, again, taken me through some death and rebirths. That's psychological, physical, financial, emotional. You've known me since 6th grade. I'm a completely different person.
Yeah. So let's get into that.
Oh, God.
They say every 7 years we change, right? And so we're no longer who we were. And not only that, we also have pivotal moments in our lives where what they call directional changes, where we shift off into a total different direction. I want to talk about some of those pivotal moments, and you use the terminology death and rebirth. So let's talk about some of those things that you had to die to. And then let's talk about those rebirths as well.
Word.
So tell me.
Some of the moments. So like, what are, I guess I'll call them catalysts for the death and or the rebirth.
Yeah.
Last 10 years, I got married young. I got divorced young. That was one death and rebirth tornado catalyst that catapulted me into this person who honors and values and cherishes personal power and independence. So that was one of those directional catalytic moments, if catalytic is even a word. Look, charge me. Then I was going through a phase where I was working for a government agency, and it wasn't the agency itself. It was just me undergoing an internal transformation where I felt like, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I didn't get this at that time.
Yeah.
I didn't understand it at the time. I wasn't able to go into that hidden space that you spoke of.
Yeah.
At that time, where I blocked myself from doing that because I was being practically minded and or practical. And I was like, no, this is just the way to go. But there was something that took place in me that said, you know what? F it all. I quit my job. I moved from my apartment. I let go of some of the things, like I said, my apartment, car, some of the things that I felt were my tangible, practical means of safety and security. Everybody thought I was crazy because I'd been there for almost 9 years, and it takes a while to become seniored and it established that good old 401k or whatever. But my spirit, and I don't advise that people do it like how I did it. I just had to undergo it in this chaotic way because I was resistant for so long.
Yeah.
I left the job, again, left my space of living, my living space, and just cut all of my hair off. I had long hair, like dang near down on my butt, and I cut it all off. I was flat ironing my hair for so many years since I was a kid, and I just stopped putting heat in my hair. I just went through a completely different change. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? I'm following my artist dream.
All right.
It's hard. It's still hard. And I still work a 9-to-5, but I had to get away from that one for whatever reason.
Yeah. The golden handcuffs.
Yeah. I had to get away from that one because I think it represented or was corresponded with like you said, some handcuffs for me at that time. And I started my poetry journey. I published, I erected the open mic that you spoke of. And I'm living a completely different life and have a completely different mindset.
Well, I want to dig into this because
I'm scared of these questions.
Don't be scared. I got you.
Because you're one of those people that you're deep too. I don't think people realize how deep you are. So I'm like, what do you got for me, girl?
So before I ask the question, I too had some death and rebirths, right? And so, just even sitting here with you today, and I'm thinking, had I still been married, I would not have been doing Queen's Vantage podcast. This was a part of one of those directional changes and rebirths of my life. But there was this fire inside of me that really, it burned throughout my body. That was pushing me and pulling me into this directional change. And I knew that there would be some catalysts along the way, whether that be friendships, whether that be the hurt and pain and suffering of my children, because although they're happy to see me happy now, they also had to go through this death and rebirth.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to know, what was it inside of you? What was that feeling? And I heard you tell the guests, don't do it the way I did it. But why not?
Yeah, it just depends on who you are and what your soul came to this earth to experience. For me, my soul said, you're going to go through some major transformational experiences, because what you walk away with is the fearlessness that no matter how, bad that earthquake is in that moment, the rebuilding can happen, and it happens, and it happens quite beautifully and powerfully. So I think that's why I had to go through it that way. If somebody does have to undergo a chaotic transformation, so be it.
Yeah.
Just have the faith to know that you'll be fine.
And that's really what I wanted to get at.
Okay.
Because I know that you have a divine faith. And I remember walking away from my situation, and we were in a marriage, and we were making really good money together, but we were struggling. And I remember crying out to God. I was in what I called my war room. So I had set my closet up, and it was my prayer room. And I remember crying out to God, and God was very clear. He asked me, what do you fear? And I said, I don't want to be broke. How am I going to take care of these 3 kids on my own, God? I'm struggling with a man. How am I going to do this on my own? And so clearly God said to me, if money is what you're worried about, you'll never worry about money again. And it was that divine faith. Before all of this, I went through a period of not talking to God for 2 years when I lost my mother. For 2 years, I was so upset. I was so angry because I felt like he had taken the most important person in my life. And selfishly, because it was hard for me to let go of my mother here on earth, I was angry with God. And I remember I would still go to pray, right? Because I'm a church kid. So I grew up in a church, and I remember I would go to pray, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm not talking to you. So I gave God the silent treatment for 2 years. But there was never a day that I feel like my faith wavered.
Okay.
My faith was still there. And that's really what I'm hearing
That's
from
good.
you, is that you had this level of faith that you knew that when you walked away, you were going to be okay.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly what it was. There's so many, so many things, so many sayings, so many scriptures that outline what that's like,
Yeah.
walk by faith, not by sight. All of those teachings let us know, like, you're the author of your world, like you're the creator. So what do you want?
Yeah.
And like you said, you went to your war room and it's like, I just don't want to be broke. You didn't want to feel or experience instability.
Right.
And so you manifested stability for yourself.
Yeah.
That's a very hard, it takes some time to get there.
Yeah.
And God will prep you along the way.
Yeah.
Whether it's, oh, I'm scared to ride a bike, and then you learn how to ride a bike, and now you have faith. That's faith when you're riding a bike.
Right.
You start off feeling like you're going to fall from one side to the next side, and before you know it, you hands off the handlebars, and you're just riding. You know how it was. Did you ride bikes? You rode bikes.
Of course I rode bikes.
You rode bikes.
I did, right up to the Cimarrons.
Yeah, right up to my neighborhood. And so it's just like that. And I still experience transformative moments in life, and I still have those weary moments where I'm like, how am I going to get out of this?
Yeah.
How am I going to rebuild this or recreate whatever it is that I'm experiencing or dealing with at the time? And lo and behold, like, something always comes through, but it can't happen unless you, like you said, align with that divine faith. Like, I'm putting my faith in nothingness.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even see this thing,
Yeah.
no thingness,
Yeah.
I can't even see it, but out of that is creation.
Yes.
Void, then the creation, right?
Yeah.
We could philosophize all day.
Did you just spit some bars?
I think I did.
Yeah. AJ, you get that?
Straight fire.
Accident, right?
Yeah. So I think something else that I want to share, because I think it's so important, like, as we, talk about or even encourage others to really step out on faith, I think it's also equally important to be surrounded by the right people.
In poetry, we like snap. So can I snap
Okay,
on here?
you can snap on here. And then to understand when you have to shift, right? You have to shift away from some people. And I'm curious to know, what was your support system like when you were stepping out? What was that like for you? And speak candidly. I need the Queen's Vantage.
You need the Queen's Vantage. Well, I want to first recognize that I did have people in my corner.
Absolutely.
But it was very few.
Yeah.
It was very few, because the people that you're around pre-transformation are representations or correspondence to that old container that you're in. And it's not a personal thing. It's just what it is. I was an old container for someone else, and maybe still am for other people. And they may have to leave my quarters, or I digress. So I had just a few people in my corner that I can say they believe in me. Maybe one or two people. And even that felt shaky.
Yeah.
Because I was in a shaky place.
Yeah.
Like I said, I busted out of a cage, out of a cocoon, and everything shatters. And so people are shocked by your transformation sometimes and just don't know how to grasp this new you.
Yeah.
And they don't know, like, yo, do I fit into your new you's life?
Yeah.
And
will I lose you?
Or will I lose you?
Now you're this beautiful butterfly and you have these beautiful wings, and people tend to fear, will I lose you?
Yeah, people will fear, will they lose you? And I was so afraid of losing people. The dialogue in my head kept running over. She fake now, or she's Hollywood. And I just wanted to prove to the people around me that I'm not fake, I'm not Hollywood.
Like,
I still want you in my life.
Yeah.
But that shrunk me. That shrunk me, because that was my fear.
Yeah.
Fear of losing that old container. And so, like you said, just having undeniable faith that it's all going to work out, and who's supposed to be in your world as you move forward and as you progress, and what's supposed to be in your world as you move forward and progress will be.
Yeah.
But that initial phase is scary.
Yeah.
Because you will lose people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we've talked about death and rebirth. But one of the things that we haven't talked about is the grieving.
Mm.
And so, as you said, there was a few people around you, and there's also, and I've experienced this as well. The more that I find myself, the more I lose others. I never lose God.
You said the more I find myself, the more I lose others.
The more I lose others. And so,
can we just sit on that real quick?
We can sit on that. And what I'm realizing is that we don't talk enough about the grieving period, right? And so, or that stage of grief, right? Because I understood, hospice prepared me for the grieving cycle with my mother, and I knew that I needed to go get grief therapy, and I knew all of that. But no one prepares you for when either a friend turns their back on you or a loved one, family member, mother, father, whoever. No one prepares you on what it takes to grieve those relationships. And it was some work for me because, speaking very transparently, lost a very close friend at the end of last year.
I'm sorry.
And it was hard for me.
To death? I'm sorry,
Not to
forgive me.
death. Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
Just
no.
Separation. You guys go your own ways.
We've gone our own ways. And it was devastating for me at the time. And one of the things that, so like you said, we're not getting older. We're just becoming wiser. One of the things that wisdom has bestowed upon me is understanding that once I lost my mother, I understood loss. So my mother's death prepared me for loss.
Wow.
Soon after I lost my father, 2 years after I lost my mother, I lost my father.
Oh, wow.
The same year I lost my father, I filed for divorce. So I had to learn how to grieve properly and realizing that grief is the final act of love. It's the final act of love. You never stop loving those people.
Okay.
You just have to learn to live without them.
Whew. That's deep.
And I want to talk about that a bit for you because I know that you've suffered some loss, and I want to give some space because what I'm leading into is to talk about your brother and what that was like for you. But how do you deal with that? Because we talk about, coming out of that cocoon, but you're this butterfly and you're flying, Tiff.
Ah, Shay, thank you.
You are beautiful. You are soaring.
Thank you, sis.
All of the work that you're putting out to the world, the lives that you're changing, known and unknown. And that's going to be a continuous of grief for you because as you continue to fly to new heights, you're going to leave some people behind. And I don't know if you've put any thought into that, but I'm curious to know, how do you deal with those grieving stages?
You really should bestow wisdom upon me because I don't think I've mastered that. I don't think I'm realizing, I don't think I've realized when I'm grieving. And so it's I just get through it.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm conscious of it. And I think I need to learn how to identify, I'm in a grieving phase.
Yeah.
I can touch on just losing certain people in my life.
Yeah.
I've gotten better at it. Like I said, initially, it's no, don't leave me. But after a while, I'm learning the love, like you said, the love still remains. I still appreciate all of those beautiful moments. But even for me, in the grieving phase, what I experience often is I what do you call it? I go back and forth with my appreciation of the time we spent.
Yes.
And I think that for me, I feel oh no, I have to rekindle.
Yeah.
Or I have to keep this person or this aspect or this dynamic in my life. And I'm learning. I'm not good at it. I'm not a master, but I am learning no, this person you guys are no longer an energetic match. You're no longer on the same channel. It's like being dialed onto an R&B station, but this person is still playing rap or vice versa. No judge against any genre. I'm just giving a cookie cutter example of what I mean. We're not even singing the same tune anymore.
Right.
And that's okay. It doesn't mean the other tune is bad or my tune is better.
Right.
It doesn't mean any of it. It just means, we're not aligned.
Yeah.
So,
and we've reached our destination.
And
together.
we've reached our destination.
Yeah.
And now that I've come out of shedding or grieving certain relationships. I like use the example of friendships or whatever, or family relationships. I still appreciate what we had and
Yeah.
smile about it now. But at one point, you know, I felt like, oh no, I want this back.
Yeah.
But then now it's like I smile and I'm like, oh, okay. There was an alchemical process that we underwent.
Yeah.
You know, I took some attributes, I learned some things. They did the same. Like there was a good exchange.
Yeah.
And so I'm just learning, I think, after hearing what you said and how you've like framed everything, I think I'm learning like maybe I need to focus on what it was and what I was supposed to get and kind of integrate it into my life.
Yeah.
And realize like there's certain ways about me, certain jokes, certain sayings that I have that came from an old partner, you know,
Yeah.
or an old
Yeah.
lover.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I got that from so-and-so.
Yeah.
And instead of like being mad at what it isn't anymore with the person, just accepting like, oh, they brought something beautiful into my life, even if it's just like a joke or something.
In this space, I want to honor your brother.
Yes. Shout out Mike Banks.
Shout out Mike Banks. The last time I saw him,
Everyone has their last time story.
the last time I saw him, we were in San Francisco at one of those 18 and up clubs. And he wasn't quite 18, so he couldn't come in. And so we went in and we partied. And he was like, I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna make sure that y'all good. You know, when y'all come out, we just thinking like, you know, whatever, we go in. When we came out, he was still out there with his friends.
Really?
And he made sure that we got to our cars safely that night. And I didn't know that that was going to be the last time I saw him.
Interesting. That's crazy. All of our mutual friends, you know, we're from the same region, North Vallejo. And so all of our mutual friends say that they had this magical last moment with him.
Yeah.
And it just makes me so happy to hear that.
Yeah. And just to put this into a bit of context for the viewers and listeners, and especially those who have experienced trauma behind the death of a loved one to gun violence. Tiffany's brother was murdered and he was taken from us. And it was a hard loss because he was your brother, but he was all of our little brother.
Yes.
And so I really wanted to just share space with you because, you know, after we didn't get that chance to, you know, to talk. And I mean, at that age, how do we even know how to even process death? So Tiff, I thank you for taking this time to even share this part of you that you could easily keep hidden.
Yeah. Ooh.
So I just want to thank you for sharing him with all of us.
Ashe.
And I know that was another time in your life where I'm sure you experienced a change.
Absolutely.
How are you doing now?
It was a very traumatizing experience.
Yeah.
And I still have that trauma lodged within my system, my field. I'm not sad about it anymore. I think God was preparing me for it before it happened. And so luckily I had my spirituality, I had my faith to get me through, and it was a blur.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just me who lost him. All of us lost him at the same time. So I shared that with the community. I shared it with all of our mutual friends, and that made it easier for me. I remember when I was young, because he and I grew up neck and neck. We're like less than 2 years apart. So it's like kind of coming up as twins. And for a while before our younger sisters were born, it was just he and myself, you know, in the household. So our childhood, we have it together. Like we like this. And I wasn't just his sister. I was like his mama too.
Yeah.
And so I remember when we were younger, I said to myself, if my brother ever, like for whatever reason, he was the apple of my eye.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know why. I probably was his as well. But next to my grandmother, I'm probably next in line in terms of who he loves, like motherly wise.
Yeah. You were like his mom.
I was like his mama. And so I remember saying like, when I began to feel like, okay, he wasn't on the right path or in alignment, right?
Yeah.
I began to say to myself, like, if anything ever happens to him, I'm just going to commit suicide. Because it was just something I wouldn't be able to bear.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get emotional, but like I was telling you one day over brunch, like, I'm so happy that other people were able to bear that for me.
Yeah.
The whole community was there. Told you don't do
I'm
me
sorry.
this. And so I was just, I'm thankful that I had the people around me. And I remember one homie said, let us bear this for you.
Yeah.
Because it happened at an event that I could have easily been at and witnessed for myself. Everyone else was able to witness it, but for whatever reason, I was not there.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, God, thank you.
Yes.
Because I wouldn't be able to see that for the rest of my life in my mind's eye.
Yeah.
And God just knew that's not what I came to this earth to have to carry and store within my subconscious.
Right.
It was hard enough viewing his body, for the funeral. And everybody has their traditions, but I was like, I can't see his body. I don't want to see it in a casket, but for whatever reason I did, and it haunted me.
Yeah.
I had bad dreams after. But in my mother's tradition, my mother's Filipino, you have to view the body.
Yeah.
It is an act of respect. And so I had to see it. And so I hope y'all edit my little cry baby face, but no, it's okay to be transparent.
Yeah.
That was a moment for me. And so coming from saying, yo, I won't be able to bear it and I'll commit suicide because I can't bear that pain, to being able to bear it, whatever means God used, whether it was the community helping me to bear the pain, whether it was, the marriage that the husband, when I got married, that helped me to cope as well, honestly. And then having my children shortly after. And now I'm in a place where I'm like, I'm okay with the fact that he's not here.
Yeah.
My son, who is the same amount of years younger than my daughter as Mike was, than myself, was born dang near on my brother's birthday. And I'm not saying he's a reincarnation, but I see that there's the universe, energy doesn't die and patterns continue forward. And I wanted to touch on trauma.
Yeah.
Because although I'm emotionally okay, it's hard for me as a mother of a Black son.
Absolutely.
Because not only is it the police, it's peers, it's environment. And I'm not afraid, but it makes me very aware that, Black men have targets on their backs.
Yeah.
And so it makes me a bit paranoid.
Yeah.
I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that I shape my son's environment in a way that doesn't align him with gun violence.
Yeah.
And I know, and I recognize after having conversations with you, I recognize like, I think this is trauma working. Because it's one thing to just, be a good parent and be active in making sure that your son or your children are in good environments, but it's another to be paranoid about it.
Yeah.
And to be going like above and beyond and even beyond that.
Yeah. It's understandable.
Yeah.
You've gone through something traumatic.
So I think I still need to deal with this, the trauma.
Well, the thing about healing from past traumas is that it's a continuous cycle, right? Mm-hmm. And as we're triggered, just through conversation, that pain that still resides in us will come out. Mm-hmm. But you're absolutely right. I always encourage, I feel like I'm in constant therapy, okay? People like, you still seeing a therapist? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I pray. Every night. So you're right. Our trauma informs. I've lost someone to gun violence as well. And it changes us. I almost say it changes our DNA in a sense. Yeah. So absolutely, as a mother raising Black boys, it's hard because you're right, environment. So it's not just police violence, it's the violence in the community. Yeah. It's community members who just think you're not supposed to live here or be here. So absolutely. I want to lead into how because you're a mother of amazing kids.
Thank you.
And you've had this trauma, but you are changing. You're changing the trajectory for your own children. But I want to just talk briefly about your relationship with your kids, because I know behind the scenes, as a friend, you're an amazing mother.
Thank you.
But I want to talk a bit about, you as a mom and that relationship that you have with your amazing children. And you just shared like how you two how you three pray together.
Right.
So
Me and my children, I'm mama. I'm mommy. I'm mama bear. But they're also my best friends.
Yeah.
I had a mentor tell me, she said, no, those are your children. They're not your friends. And although I trust her advice and I understand kind of what she meant to explain or say, I don't agree.
Right.
Like my children are my best friends.
Yes.
Like I have friends in my children.
Yeah. My kids are my homies.
They're like
those are my homeboys. I always say I'm their mother first and I'm their best friend second.
Yes.
So.
And I love being a mommy.
Yeah.
Like they still call me mommy. And I was like, are your friends making fun of you because you still call me mommy? And my son was like, it is a little awkward, but he can't help but still call me mommy from time to time. Well, he calls me mommy because that's just, it describes the frequency of motherhood that I'm on, I believe. It's a very tender. There are different moms out there. I just so happen to be a mommy. We can break those terms down or whatever. And some are mamas or all in all, mothers are beautiful, right? But in essential, however, I will say I got to be transparent. They're teenagers now. And now that my youngest is now in high school, both my kids are in high school. And I'm like, whoa, essentially 4 more years and they're grown, building their own lives. And so for me, being conscious of that, I'm like, I only have 4 more years to be mommy. You know what I mean? I'll always be their mommy, but
You'll always trust me.
the daily dynamic will shift. And so I'm just in a place where I'm like, I'm going to taste this.
Savor it.
I'm going to savor this all the way through every moment, and oftentimes we're chasing, experiences or people or partners, dynamics outside of what we're already experiencing. But like my son crossing the threshold to high school, I'm like, both my kids are about to be grown in about 4 years, less than 4 years for my daughter, 4 years for them total. I'm like, yo, I need to just embrace this life. Remember we were at brunch one day and I don't know when we were talking, but we talked about how we've lived very multiple lives within this life. And right now I'm living this life. And so motherhood is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's changed me. It's developed me.
Yeah. And I thank you for your incredible tenacity and courage with everything that you've been through and everything that you've shared with us today to push through, Tiff.
Thank you, sis.
Like to push through. And to be an amazing mother to these amazing children, soon to be young adults. But we won't look too far in the future. We're going to stay right here in the present and seize this moment. I thank you for that. But I have a fun part of the segment that I'd like to move to before we get out of here today.
Let's go.
So this part of the segment is called Taboo Talk. I've enjoyed this time with you. But Tiff, you and I just...
Taboo talk?
Yeah, taboo talk.
Oh, God.
We just celebrated our 40th birthdays. Yours was just a week before mine.
Aries gang.
Aries. And there's so much chatter about this, like turning 40, right? And what that means, especially for women. I feel like when men turn 40, there's like no... celebrations, there's no fireworks, but we turn 40 and suddenly we have all these labels, right? On us.
Labels. Okay.
That I don't subscribe to.
Ashe.
But what has dating been like for you at the age of 40?
For me, dating has been clean. It's been clean. And I believe it's clean because I've had to go through that BS. I've gone through my deaths and rebirths, so I've gained some wisdom.
Yes.
So now 40 is a new 20s, new young adulthood. We're just wiser and smarter, more experienced. And so I will honestly say for me, I am on a channel. I'm on a frequency now because of all of the stuff that I've learned along my way. And I've integrated those lessons within my life or into my entire being to where I don't even attract bullshit anymore.
Okay. Ashe.
You know, phone a little dry, but the
Right.
the energy that does make its way
Yeah.
into my field is serious.
Yeah.
When I say serious, not like, oh, now we're going to get married and go to the altar, but serious in the sense of I feel respect
Yeah. Yeah.
coming towards me. And even if there's no wild shots, who knows? I walk out of here and somebody send me a wild shot, but so far so good.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah.
And
I love what you said about it's clean. Because I think we have a similar energy in the sense that it's rare. So it is rare that I attract bullshit.
oh, good, right.
Most of the dudes that come at me have thought about it.
Word.
Right? The ones that either
Yes.
know me or know of me, they've thought about it before they'll shoot their shot. And I appreciate that because
Yes.
it's on a basis of respect. That's not saying it's the absence of.
Whether it works or it
Right.
doesn't work, then like the approach, right?
Right.
And the intention
Right.
is respectful. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, it's good. But and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. And you're right. It's like, it's this another phase in life where I feel like, hey, if the phone dry, I have my peace, and my peace is more important to me than anything.
Peace.
So, yeah, and I think it's fun. And I'm,
fun.
dating around, you
Ashe.
know, my age, younger,
Uh-oh.
you know, but it's fun. And it's clean. And I appreciate that. So when someone comes at me, I know that they're going to come correctly, whether they stick or not.
Whether they stick or not, it's a clean
Yeah.
flow. It's
Yeah.
a high and maybe sometimes a goodbye.
Exactly.
And another high. And then another goodbye. And sometimes
Sometimes.
hi.
Real quick and bye. Real
So
quick.
you date younger men?
Yeah. Younger men date me.
Oh, I know that's right.
And it's interesting because I struggle with it for a while because I'm like, why am I only attracting men in their 20s? But actually, my son said it to me best when I said the same thing. I said, why am I only attracting men like early 30s, late 20s? And he said, because you look like you're in your late 20s. And I'm like, okay.
Melanin.
So I feel like this. If it's for me, then, you know, God will bring it. And I'll have the discernment to know if that's the man for me. And if it's not, then I'm going to trust God when he shows me and I'm going to release that person.
Exactly.
And age is just a number.
It really is.
So,
I went through a phase like that.
yeah.
I went through a phase where I was attracting men in their 20s and I was in my mid 30s. 10 years younger than me was the number,
Yeah.
or early 30s and now I'm in my late 30s. Like, you know, that
Yeah.
decade kind of gap, roughly.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's wrong with me? I kept asking the world, the universe, like, why am I attracted? Because in my mind, I had developed a construct that older was wiser and better. When we're younger, we date older guys because it just looks better. It's a good look. But
Right.
for me, I was going through this phase where it's like, I keep attracting these young dudes and I'm like, what's wrong with me? And a guy friend of mine who's younger than me helped me put it into perspective. He said, your energy is young.
Yeah.
Your energy is exciting. So
Yeah.
you're attracting that to yourself.
So really
Not
the
to say
question
old
is,
isn't exciting or older.
Yeah. The question is, what's right with me?
What's right with me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Tiff, I hate to end this conversation because, girl,
We
you
can
know,
get-
we
we
can
get-
go
we
all
go,
day.
yeah.
But unfortunately, we're at time. Tiff, I thank you so much for joining Queen's Vantage podcast today. It's been such an honor to have you here.
Thank you, sir.
Before we get out of here, are there any shout outs?
You ask me this all the time. I've seen you do this. And I really didn't want to shout anyone out, but I really wanted to shout you out. I didn't say it the right way. I wanted to shout you out because I feel like you're going through your own chrysalis cocoon butterfly phase. And I've known you since the 6th grade, so I know many Ebonies.
Yeah.
But this new Ebony is genuine and I see you.
you.
And I could feel you, and I want you to just keep going and keep trusting God and moving forward on your visions. And don't let anything stop you. Just keep being that same firecracker that you were when we were in the 6th grade. Shout out to you for not letting me get jumped that one time. I gotta bring it up, but that's who you were in frequency. You know, you're not gonna let
I'm still the same
world.
person.
You're not gonna let anyone get bullied.
No.
And so I think that that's who you are at your core, and I think that's your gift.
Thank you.
So shouting you out, sis.
I appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, y'all. That has been another great episode. At least I think it's great, of Queen's Vantage podcast. Listen, the crown may tilt, but as you can see, it'll never fall off. All right, y'all. So if you're looking for more Queen's Vantage podcast, please go follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Queen's Vantage Podcast. And also for listening and viewing purposes, check me out on YouTube, on Spotify, and Apple at Queen's Vantage Podcast. Please, please, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.